This week we're covering a complete ultimate guide for all the houses, scare zones and shows at Universal's Halloween Horror Nights for Orlando and Hollywood, so buckle up and get ready for a guide to die for. Hi, I'm Will, your host for Universal Newscast, and we'll be covering all the news, rumours and developments happening over at Universal Studios. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well so you can get all your updates as soon as they come out. And also, why not go and check out DSNY Newscast for all your Disney news. This week we have a special Halloween Horror Night guide, and we have joined forces with Brian over at skywalkingadventure.com to bring you an ultimate breakdown of all the events happening over Orlando and Hollywood. So go and check out the link below for skywalkingadventure.com for your full guide of what to expect from this year's Halloween Horror Nights. So with that said, let's get straight to it. First off, Orlando and Hollywood will share the same house lineup this year at Halloween Horror Nights. But there are some slight differences between some of the lineups from coast to coast. So we'll begin with Universal Studios Hollywood first and make our way over to Universal Orlando Resort later. So let's start off with the intellectual property houses at this year's Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios Hollywood. First we have the Shining House, based on Stanley Kubrick's bestseller. Guests will be transported to the famous Overlook Hotel and relive the twisted and delusional mind of housekeeper Jack Torrance, with thrilling scenes from the film including the Grady Twins, Red Rum and Room 237. As one of the most difficult houses to adapt this year, we're sure that Murdy and Williams have pulled out all the stops to deliver this much anticipated house to all the fans of The Shining. Next up is the American Horror Story House, based on the critically acclaimed series by Ryan Murphy and Brad Falchuk. This year's house at Hollywood will focus solely on Roanoke, as guests take a step back in time to try and survive the long-lost colony of Roanoke. Coming face to face with the Butcher, the Piggy Man, crazy colonists and the bloodthirsty Polk family, this will be a must for all American Horror Story fans. Moving on, grab your keg and your trusty chainsaw as we slay some demons with Ash vs. the Evil Dead. Based on the popular horror cult classic from the 1980s, join Ash and his fellow crew of demon-slaying warriors visiting scenes from the first two seasons of the Starz TV series as you are taken through some of the most gory and comedic playouts, wasting deadites and ultimately saving the world one demon at a time. So be sure to check out this house to party on with Ash Williams and his crew. Next, let the games begin as our old friend Jigsaw is back. Universal have said Jigsaw returns in our brand new haunted house called Saw: The Games of Jigsaw. This house allows us to place guests into the twisted situations that fans of the film series have grown to love throughout the years. And whilst there are nods to the Halloween Horror Nights 19 house, make no mistake, this is not that house. Also, by placing the house in a different location this time round in Hollywood, gave us another way to elevate the scares. Saw: The Game of Jigsaws functions around one large trap. You'll be funneled through claustrophobic, visceral experiences and be part of one of the most terrifying games ever devised on screen. There will be trials that may be familiar and some that are completely new and unknown. So if you're feeling particularly playful, why not check out this iconic house? Our fifth IP is Horrors of Blum House. And with Blum House Productions being responsible for some of the most creepiest movies over the last 2 decades, there's a wealth of content to use, and with this comes the advantage of being able to use multiple properties inside just one house, rolling from one section to another with new scenes from completely different movies tied together with creepy yet visually stunning characters that roam the house. The maze will feature Sinister and the Purge franchises, and will also include film previews of Happy Death Day, which will be released at cinemas on Friday, October 13th. And finally, the sixth intellectual property is Insidious. Even though this standalone house is owned by Blum House Productions, Universal have seen potential in this franchise to create its very own creepy maze. Troubled with evil supernatural spirits caught between the living and the dead, you will go on an unsettling journey travelling back in time through a portal, coming across depraved and intimidating creatures all along the way. And in addition to Hollywood's 6 IP houses, the Titans of Terror Tram returns, this time though with Chucky hosting it. Along with Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees and Leatherface, Universal has stated this is taking terror to an unspeakable level of blood-curdling screams. The Titans of Terror Tram, hosted by Chucky, will transport guests into a nightmare of carnage, pitting you against these 4 modern horror icons, this time led by the infamous serial killer doll, Chucky. With his faithful army of degenerate, chainsaw-wielding good guy dolls, Chucky will unleash havoc upon guests as they navigate a portion of the world-famous backlot. Now we move on to Hollywood scare zones, all of which are original concepts, so let's have a look at what you can expect. This year, Urban Inferno summons you with hellfire and brimstone as it sends you on a journey through the underworld. There you'll find mad monks, burnt lost souls, half-goat executioners, and blacksmiths forging the chains of purgatory. Watch out for satanic demons, especially the towering king and queen. Next up, with the Hell O Ween scare zones, it's trick-or-treating time in the big city in the worst possible way. Witches, ghosts, vampires, werewolves, and undead children have come out in droves to roam the New York streets in celebration of Halloween. But be careful of stacks of jack-o'-lanterns. They might just be human heads. And in the final scare zone, prepare yourself for a deadly disaster with the Toxic Tunnel. A doomed construction site goes wrong when toxic gas accidentally bursts, exposing utility workers to the hazardous poison inside. With hazmat teams and the infected roaming the streets, turned into zombie-like subhumanoids, you'll need to escape these maniacs. And if you manage to survive the crazed mutilated workers, be careful for the toxic gas or you'll be turned into one as well. And finally, let's look at Hollywood's live entertainment. Jabberwocky, the masked breakdancing group, have returned with a brand new show. Originating from the west side of the galaxy, light years away, the Jabberwockys have crash landed on planet Earth and are now stranded in 1950s. Feeling out of place from outer space, a musical journey develops as they try and find their way back on this fantastic voyage through this strange land. The Jabberwockys encounter a like-minded and masked character named Elisa, unaware that the being they've just met may hold the key to the Jabberwockys' homecoming. So that's an amazing lineup for Hollywood, and I'm sure it'll be a hit. But let's now hop over to the opposite coast, to Orlando, and let's have a look at the Halloween Horror Night event there. Here the majority of houses and scare zones are much the same, and because of the vast space that the Orlando resort has to offer, the Halloween Horror Night attractions are also much bigger as well, compared to Hollywood. However, Orlando does not have the Titans of Terror Tram, and again the lineup is the same for the intellectual property houses, but Orlando also benefits from some original concept houses created by that great bunch over at Universal Creative. So at Orlando's event you will see The Shining, Ash vs the Evil Dead, Saw, the games of Jigsaw, all as very similar attractions to Hollywood. Then there is the American Horror Story House, but unlike Hollywood's focus solely on Roanoke, Orlando will delve into the last 3 seasons of American Horror Story, covering Asylum, Coven, and Roanoke, all in this one house. Then we come to the Horrors of Blum House. Again, this changes a bit from Hollywood, but is generally the same, and the house will include Insidious, Sinister, and The Purge. The Conjuring was also considered to be part of this year's event at Orlando as the 6th house. But due to complications with a lawsuit from the Warrens and Warner Brothers, the plans for the house have stalled and so now won't be open, meaning there's a grand total of 5 intellectual property houses instead of the normal 6. Next, let's move on to the original concept houses at Orlando, which is something that Hollywood doesn't have at all. And again, this is all possible thanks to the vast space over at Orlando. First we have Scarecrow the Reaping. This encapsulates an abandoned farmhouse in the Great Dust Bowl of Nebraska, in which guests will face off the Scarecrow Guardians that have risen from the blood-soaked soil to seek revenge. The second original concept house is the Hive. These Nosferatu-type animalistic vampires are bloodthirsty and vicious, and nothing like your newer vampires today, and surely will have you running towards the exit faster than a Twilight movie. Next up is Deadwater's house, which reintroduces the Voodoo Queen, which makes an absent return in this original house. You'll see the skeleton remains of her victims and a sunken riverboat in the bayou for good measure. And finally, the last original concept house is The Fallen. Here you become involved in a crossfire battle between good and evil, and you'll encounter scare actors and creatures flying all over the place. The set design features beauty and decay, with high screeches and deep bass roars that will rock you to the bone with this good versus evil encounter. Now we're moving on to Orlando's scare zones. But unlike Hollywood, Orlando will benefit from 2 intellectual property scare zones as well as 2 original concept scare zones, along with roaming scare actors, so here's the breakdown. The first IP scare zone is Trick or Treat, based off the Halloween horror cult classic film to make sure guests follow the rules of Halloween by Sam. This will be located in the Central Park zone of Universal Studios Florida. Here you'll see trick-or-treating themed doors, creepy outside decorations, and many jack-o'-lanterns individually carved. Next is the Purge scare zone, and will be located in the New York streets, and will be both a scare zone and part of the horrors of Blum House. We expect you'll likely be hunted down by brutal citizens upholding their pledge to purge through this 12 12-hour stint of madness and chaos instead of throughout the year, so be sure to lock up indoors or risk being a victim of this annual event. Happy purging, neighbour. Now on to our next scare zone, an original concept called Invasion. Located in the San Francisco zone of the park, you'll witness a crashed UFO in the middle of the street as part of an alien invasion which has occurred, with the intention of subjecting all humans to grotesque experiments carried out by cruel alien scientists who wish to plot the annihilation of planet Earth. With sandbags, a military truck and a general military feel, you'll be caught up in this dystopian world of invasion. And the fourth and final original concept scare zone is Altars of Horror. This will be a brand new zone this year, and Universal are doing something very different for all Halloween Horror Night fans. By taking larger than life characters, Universal are letting guests create their own scare zone, and this sounds like it will be based around each of the IP houses at the event. Also, there'll be roaming hordes, which technically aren't scare zones, but are instead extras roaming around the park, including clowns with chainsaws and characters who are your worst nightmare, coming too close for comfort. Lastly, Orlando's live entertainment is a must this year to experience a final bow out of Bill and Ted's excellent Halloween adventure, and also the return of the crazy and highly energised choreography group Academy of Villains, with a brand new composition called Afterlife. But back to Bill and Ted, as unfortunately the Wild Stallions will be making their last appearance of a role that has spanned over the last 26 years, covering many different genres of music and entertainment with controversial topics in the pop culture world. This will be your final farewell tour to see and hang with these most excellent dudes, and to rock out with your air guitars one last time. Be sure not to miss it. Also, you might be wondering about this year's icon or mascot, but unfortunately Orlando has not announced anything this year, and unlike the past year's events, the long-running tradition has been dropped, so we'll have to wait and see if this is a one-off or if it will be dropped for years to come. However, a theme does exist this year, with the most unearthly and chilling terrors called Festival of the Deadliest, where your spirit will fuel the frenzy of this ghoulish gathering, so look out for this when you visit. Also, if you want to take a screenshot, here are the maps for Orlando. Also, if you want to quench your thirst, here's a nice little bar map for Orlando, where you can see all the pop-up bars, permanent bars, and also slushy drinks to keep you nicely hydrated. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, take it now. And finally, here are the dates that Halloween Horror Nights will be running. And if you're thinking about going to Halloween Horror Nights several times in Orlando, consider using their Frequent Fear Pass, which acts like a seasonal pass, but for the whole Halloween Horror Nights season at Universal Studios Orlando. Also, general admission tickets, RIP tours, behind the screens tours, and front of line passes can all be purchased off the Universal Studios Hollywood and Orlando websites. So go and check out these to make sure you have a smooth trip. So again, a massive thanks to Brian over at skywalkingadventure.com for this comprehensive guide for Halloween Horror Nights at Orlando and Hollywood. Also, please consider sharing this video with anyone you're planning to go with to Halloween Horror Nights so you can be all hyped up for the big event. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this complete rundown of Halloween Horror Nights. As always, thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button and the little notification bell as well so you can get all your updates as soon as they come out. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment and share, as it really does help this channel grow, and we really do appreciate it. And with that, we'll see you again next Wednesday for another Universal Newscast. Let us know in the comments below what sort of topics and areas you'd like for us to cover next week, as remember, where there's a will, there's a way.